They didn't know this goofy tourist was actually a master assassin. Hutch sits in a dark interrogation room looking like he lost a fight with the cheese grater. He pulls out a lighter, but instead of smoking, he calmly cauterizes an open wound, while two agents watch in horror. They ask who he is. He says, Nobody, which is the name of the movie. Well, it's Nobody too, actually. So we skip back in time a week to see the mess unfold. On Monday, Hutch wakes to cheesy music and the smell of bacon. It is a picture-perfect suburban morning, creating a false sense of security that is about to be shattered. The week progresses with the subtlety of a car crash. Wednesday is quiet, Thursday is a bloodbath. Hutch violently disassembles several men in a hallway, then immediately checks his phone because domestic obligations are scarier than hitmen. With bloody hands, he texts his wife that he is working late. Meanwhile, Becca eats dinner, disappointed. By Friday morning, the kitchen is bright again. Hutch strolls in, pretending he didn't just delete people from existence 12 hours ago. He's totally drained. He claims he slept in the basement, which is technically true, as he just returned from a mission in the middle of the night. Becca ignores his visible fatigue to focus on logistics. Outside, he drags the trash to the curb and attempts a moment of connection. She responds by putting on sunglasses and driving away. Hutch is left alone with the garbage, which feels appropriate. Later on another mission, Hutch poses as a convention guest. He enters an elevator full of men who are clearly not there for the keynote speech. We cut to the aftermath. Hutch drinking whiskey with his handler, a suit from the secret assassin organization who distributes the work. Hutch hands over a data card. A flashback reveals the elevator ride devolved into a brawl involving guns and zero personal space. Hutch retrieves the card from a pile of bodies. It's definitely one way to conduct business. The handler processes the homicide reports with the enthusiasm of a data entry clerk. After the elevator, Hutch fights in the kitchen and then disassembles machete-wielding thugs in the garage. He fights with the casual boredom of a man folding laundry. Back in the office, the handler is amused that a man who looks like he was designed to sell yogurt just single-handedly lowered the local population density. The handler notes that Hutch is chipping away at his debt, paying back the amount of cash he incinerated during the last movie. It is a professional arrangement rather than a hostage situation. Hutch is simply clearing the ledger. He requests time off, staring at a dead thug's Plummerville bumper sticker. It triggers a memory of the single vacation his father actually took him on as a child. He finds the commercial on his laptop and decides to inflict this nostalgia on his own household. Hutch pitches the trip to his skeptical children. Brady, his son, is sporting a fresh black eye. Becca waves it off as a sports-related mishap, and Hutch decides not to press the issue. They collect Grandpa David, who exits his retirement facility with this surprising amount of swagger. The family piles into the car for the drive, aiming for a bonding experience that will likely involve substandard snacks and quiet resentment. They arrive at Plummerville, home to the oldest water park, a title that serves as a warning about structural integrity. The check-in is a logistical failure, landing Hutch and Becca in a honeymoon suite with dusty tiki decorations. They attempt a brief moment of romance, but their daughter wanders in, reminding them that privacy is a luxury they forfeited years ago. The family accepts the reality and marches towards the communal bacteria pool. Unfortunately, the worker informs them that the park is closed due to an incident, offering a hot dog coupon as compensation for their crushed dreams. They retreat to a diner where Hutch enters a fugue state, staring blankly at a specific spot on the wall. He's reminiscing about his childhood. Unfortunately, a local sheriff is occupying that spot and mistakes Hutch's disassociation for a stare down. The lawman takes offense. Later, the family visits an arcade to synthesize joy using quarters. The arcade smells of desperate commerce. Hutch's son, Brady, successfully purchases the affection of teenage girls with paper tickets until local youths decide his face requires an unauthorized remodeling. A scuffle breaks out. Hutch prepares to dismantle the attackers, but his wife restrains him. They attempt to leave, but on the way out, an adult manager decides to slap Hutch's daughter on the head. The family exits, though the structural integrity of Hutch's patience has officially failed. Outside, Hutch claims he forgot his phone. This is a lie. He walks back inside and initiates a violent transaction. He is in fact not there to retrieve electronics. He is there to educate the locals on physics using a mallet and arcade cabinets. He beats everyone senseless while his family watches. Brady looks at his father, remembering the man who mows the lawn is actually a dormant weapon. The family is taken to the station. The same sheriff from the diner, still feeling intense eye contact insecurity, leads Hutch to a back office. A man named Wyatt sits with his boots on the desk, the universal signal for local villain. Wyatt explains he owns the town and that Hutch damaged his son during the arcade seminar. As Wyatt screams, Hutch pivots, asking the sheriff what he would have done if a stranger hit his daughter. The appeal to paternal instinct overrides the law. Hutch receives sympathy rather than a jail cell, and the family is released. Maybe this is why a guy ain't so bad. Sheriff Abel decides to ignore protocol and quietly tells a deputy to round up the boys. It is a vague instruction, but it rarely implies a surprise party. Back at the resort, the air is thick with tension and the smell of cheap bamboo furniture. Becca confronts Hutch about his rage and demands to inspect his secret black bag. She expects illegal firearms. She finds sentimental wine. The marital crisis is immediately resolved by alcohol, and they share a romantic moment in a room that looks like a rejected set from Survivor. The next day features a mandatory fun montage. Becca dominates an arcade shooting game, displaying a level of lethality that is concerning for a suburban mom. Then the family prepares to board a Duckboat, a vehicle that combines the danger of sinking with the dignity of a bathtub toy. Hutch spots the sheriff's deputies closing in. He lies about churros upsetting his stomach and refuses to board with his family. Instead, he steps onto a separate boat. The goons follow him, along with a few innocent tourists who are about to have a very confusing afternoon. The boat launches with a cheerful guide, the tourists, and the hit squad. The thugs attempt intimidation, which is cute but ineffective. Hutch decides to upgrade their ticket to a first-class beating. He utilizes life vests and poles to violently disassemble the men. It is a masterclass in non-lethal blunt force trauma, performed in front of a captive audience of vacationers. The brawl continues because the henchmen are persistent, if not talented. Hutch gets creative with a pole, though he suffers a slight disagreement with a knife that removes the top of his pinky finger. It is an annoying cosmetic adjustment. He leaves the men unconscious and broken, but breathing, surrounded by the groaning consequences of his actions. He calls his brother from another mother, Harry, to catch up and discuss the riveting history of Plummerville. Harry asks why Hutch thought their father took them to Plummerville when they were kids. It turns out it wasn't for the family bonding. Dad was on a mission. All kinds of secret underground illegal things go through Plummerville. Then, in a warehouse that smells of grease and bad decisions, Sheriff Abel and Wyatt supervise the loading of illegal cargo, including a case marked with a biohazard symbol. Meanwhile, Beck and the kids enjoy the park, staring at a depressed wolf in a cage. I think this might be a metaphor for Hutch's predicament, or perhaps just a case of animal cruelty. One of the men Hutch dismantled calls Sheriff Abel from the dock, explaining that Hutch is not a standard tourist. He beat them all single-handedly. Abel struggles to process this level of incompetence. Hutch calls the handler, who delivers exposition for behind a fish tank. The barber identifies the threat as Lindina, a crazy chick crime lord. In her casino, Lindina catches a man cheating. She claps him, then orders her henchmen to massacre every witness in the room. It creates a terrible mess, but it certainly clarifies the house rules. After, Lindina calls Wyatt regarding a shipment. Wyatt insists that this is his last job, as he has finally paid off his father's debt, and they are officially ex-partners. Lindina mocks him, reminding him that his father got distracted, a polite euphemism for the fact she murdered him, and asks if Wyatt is losing focus too. He realizes his role in this story has been aggressively downgraded from boss to middle management liability. Meanwhile, Beck and the kids are relaxing in the hotel room. Grandpa arrives with burgers, announcing that Hutch is running late and there's no time to talk. They need to move immediately. Hutch drives to the warehouse, practicing a calm, rational speech in his rearview mirror. He arrives, decides the speech is boring, and immediately pours gasoline over the drug shipment instead. He holds up a lighter, prepared to negotiate through the universal language of arson. Hutch offers a simple trade. He leaves, and the bad guys stop trying to murder his family. Or kaboom. Sheriff Abel agrees, mostly because he doesn't want to explain a pile of ash to his boss. Hutch keeps his word and walks away. However, as he heads for the exit, a van door slides open to reveal Wyatt's son, bound and gagged on the floor. Leverage Abel procured to keep Wyatt in line under Lindina's orders. Hutch ignores the moral dilemma, gets in the car and drives away. Based. He enjoys approximately 2 seconds of peace before his conscience forces a U-turn. Hutch returns to the warehouse and efficiently deletes the henchman from existence. He leaves Abel for last. The sheriff tries to shoot him, but the gun clicks empty, proving he is bad at both math and murder. Hutch shoots a ceiling light instead. Sparks rain down, the money catches fire, and the building turns into a blast furnace. Hutch grabs the kid and exits just as the warehouse explodes. In a boardroom, Lindina realizes her quarterly projections have been ruined by a pyromaniac tourist. Lindina reviews the footage and screams at Abel, who is charred but alive, proving that stupidity is indeed fireproof. She's out of ideas, so Abel suggests they gather a small army to handle the problem. She agrees because throwing more bodies at the situation is the only strategy they have left. Meanwhile, Hutch retreats to a cabin to reunite with his family. It is a heartwarming family gathering. Assuming heartwarming includes preparing for a siege wage against the cartel. Hutch tries to play the noble martyr, telling Becca to run. Becca, who is clearly the intelligent one, refuses and tells him to go finish the violence he started. Hutch visits Wyatt to broker peace. They exchange pleasantries, which means throwing each other through arcade machines, until Hutch reveals he saved Wyatt's son back at the warehouse. The brawling stops immediately. They sit for a drink, because alcohol is the only conflict resolution these men understand. Hutch and Wyatt bond over the universal truth that fathers leave their sons nothing but debt and trauma. Meanwhile, Lindina is shown dancing to German pop music, with her henchmen and a dog, vibing to her own villainy. Back at the park, Wyatt reveals a hidden armory. His father spent years stockpiling guns and explosives to fight Lindina, but she got him first. Womp womp. Then the park is evacuated. Wyatt looks up and is visibly shocked to see a black man. It is Harry, Hutch's brother, who claims he sensed a crisis. Then Grandpa gleefully rigs explosives in a tiki tower, before Hutch and Harry reminisce about him and their childhood. They realize their neglected childhood was actually efficient training for guerrilla warfare. Meanwhile, Lindina uses a drone to locate the family cabin, unaware that Becca has stopped panicking and started loading rifles with professional interest. Back at the park, Sheriff Abel struts out to negotiate. He is arrogant, telling them he is in charge now and offering mercy if they surrender. Hutch and Wyatt politely decline. Abel turns to walk back, but Lindina grows bored of the middle management and fires him, literally. She orders his death, and her men execute him by firing squad on the spot. With the sheriff successfully removed from the payroll, the goons charge in while Johnny Cash plays in the background. Subtlety is dead. The traps activate, rides become wrecking balls, and popcorn stands become IEDs. Hutch herds the survivors into a mirror maze, ensuring the remaining violence is artistically disorienting and aesthetically pleasing. Hutch's traps continue to put in work, while Wyatt hides in a ball pit, a tactical move usually reserved for toddlers. He lures henchmen into explosive deaths. Then Hutch releases the wolf, briefly the park's most competent employee, and repurposes a water slide as a high-velocity disposal chute for human remains. It is colorful, loud, and unsanitary. Meanwhile, at the cabin, Harry is fully committing to the bit. He is a black man expertly wielding a Japanese katana in the shadows, creating a cultural crossover event that is confusing but highly effective. He recites family mottos while surgically disassembling a squad of mercenaries who brought guns to a sword fight. Then a silver-haired assassin attempts to intervene with a machete, but Harry ends the argument by rearranging the man's face. The children are saved, ensuring the family lineage survives to be traumatized later. Back at the water park, the festivities continue. Hutch drags a leaking Wyatt to safety, patching his wounds like a mechanic fixing a tire. He searches for his father, but instead finds Lindina, who pauses for the mandatory villain monologue about who sent him. Hutch insists he is just there making memories. Technically true, assuming those memories involve PTSD. Lindina is unimpressed by his dad jokes and has her bodyguards beat him into submission. Lindina straddles Hutch to mock his existence, a classic villain error of wasting time gloating. Then the soundtrack pivots to Celine Dion, creating a surreal music video for Homicide. Becca interrupts with a rifle, announcing herself as the better half, before shooting out Lindina's eye. While the villains are distracted by the violence, Hutch's dad, watching remotely like a chaotic senior citizen, slams the detonator. Hutch, Becca, and Wyatt dive into the water just as the park vaporizes. Lindina and her staff are permanently downsized by the fireball. Underwater, Becca retrieves Hutch. They share a romantic, oxygen-deprived kiss amidst the debris, proving true love is mostly about holding your breath. Later, agents interrogate the couple about the massacre, a callback to the very first scene. Then a phone rings and the government decides the paperwork for a small war is too heavy, so they let the murderers walk free. Back in suburbia, the family enjoys a slideshow of the vacation they ruined. The daughter suggests returning next year, which is impossible since the resort is now a crater. The movie ends because they have run out of things to blow up. Moral of the story? What was bro doing?